like a charade game, and you're in, whatever country you're in, and you have to go buy something.
Okay.
And how do you, that person knows no English, knows nothing, you know nothing in that language.
Right. Like, how do you, for example, ask for a laxative
Yeah.
in France?
Yes. Yes, and
without saying a word.
Yes.
I like that idea.
And when they don't understand, and you keep going until finally you're just like one in tears almost, like, okay.
Because in your mind, like, there is a way I can describe this pretty quickly, but you're like, I don't want to
walk
go
in
there.
And just go, because I think I did something like this, and then this is how it comes up. And the lady gave me a thumbs up back, and I'm like, no. Sitting here getting high in Amsterdam. People watching, and
this is going to be on the clip,
Is it? Okay,
Yeah,
well.
everybody's going to know what you're really doing
What
in
I'm
Amsterdam.
doing here.
Yeah. So, Janna, I say Janna because that's what we say here.
It is.
It's a soft J. I'm sorry.
When you're in Europe, I guess it's Janna.
Janna.
When I was in Moldova, it was Janna.
Janna.
So
okay.
Yes.
And how do you pronounce it?
Janna.
Janna.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I want to welcome you to Frogland.
Thank you.
Which, I'll explain a little bit more for your understanding for people who haven't seen it.
Okay.
It's really focused around life abroad, travel, living abroad, intercultural experiences, intercultural exchange. So I thought it'd be perfectly fitting to talk to you, seeing as you're a person and I understand travels all around the world, kind of all the time, which I find absolutely remarkable and inspiring. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about your travels and your journeys. So, but just really quick, tell me about yourself. Where are you from? Where are you based normally?
Out of Durango, Colorado.
Okay.
And I have 5 children, 4 boys, 1 girl, and a beautiful granddaughter.
Oh, that's amazing.
So, yeah.
Okay. So Durango, where is that close to?
Southwest corner, so in the 4 corners by New Mexico, Utah,
Okay.
Arizona, Colorado.
Okay.
Right there. Yeah.
Very nice. And what percentage of the year would you say you spend in Colorado versus not Colorado?
This year I want to say I've probably been home 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
Total.
It's like 90% gone.
Yes. I'm home sometimes for 3 days, 4 days.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So maybe it's a little more than the 3 weeks, but
yeah. Go home.
Not much.
Change.
Get
new clothes.
Turn around. Yes.
Turn around.
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Right.
And this is my second time now meeting you in Amsterdam.
Yes.
Which has been nice. We've met now in Vondelpark. That's where we're sitting now. Which is one of my favorite places in Amsterdam. But how many times have you now been to Amsterdam?
I want to say 6.
Okay.
So when my husband was stationed, he was in the Air Force, so we were stationed in Germany, and we came up here a couple times.
Okay.
And then I've come up since I started traveling, and I love it. It's one of my favorite. That and Prague are 2 of my favorite places in the world.
Yeah, we were just talking about that. I also love Prague. I find it extremely charming. Kind of all the old cobblestone streets and a lot of history, just like Amsterdam.
It is. I think the first time I went there, it was during when they were still under Soviet control. I was the only person in the square in Prague.
Okay.
And so to go there now, it's just there's thousands of people, and it's hard to remember back to when you were just the only person looking around to see if there was anything to do, right before they became their own country, independent.
Wow. So I was reading a little bit of your blog,
Reflections Around the Globe.
And I was hoping that maybe you could tell me a couple things. What inspires you to travel? I'm curious, what are some of your favorite places you've traveled to, and for what reasons? And then I also know most recently that you've traveled to Moldova for 3 months. And I'll park that and we'll come back to Moldova because I'm really interested in your kind of most recent experience.
Okay.
And specifically, I think Moldova is interesting because of world events right now with the war in Ukraine. And I also, one of my best friends here in Amsterdam is from Moldova, he and his wife,
awesome.
who are also on another episode of Frogland.
Oh,
so I think
awesome.
Moldova is a really interesting topic.
Yes.
But let's start with travel. Like, you're not doing a normal thing.
No.
You're a person that is out in the world 75+% of their time, going to all new places. Tell me what inspires you to travel.
I love history. I was a history major, but then after college got married, had kids, raised my kids. My husband died in '93, so we had 5 small children, 9 months to 9 years old. So that kept me busy for many years. And I think, I can't remember the first trip I took after the kids were grown. And it triggered something. And I think that history, learning the history, meeting people, talking to the people, just getting to know them and getting to know their country and their culture is fascinating to me.
And being a history major and then later starting to travel, had you ever traveled while you were kind of coming up in the history
Not really.
education?
Not really.
Okay,
When
so
we
you
were in the
experienced
military,
it.
in the military, once in a while. You know, you'd go on these little day trips or go on, just something like that, but nothing big.
Yeah, because I mean, up until I traveled, and it is true for many people, we learn about we learn about places and events from books, but maybe it's a completely different experience when you're there.
I think it is, and I love going to museums. I think that's where you really get a good understanding, and then just talking to people. You can strike up a conversation with anyone anywhere, and sometimes it's awkward and they don't want to talk to you, and you know right away, and other times you get some fascinating stories of their lives and their families' lives.
Would you describe yourself as a traveler that plans everything out or a little more sporadic in your...
I'd say sporadic. I'd say I plan where I'm going to go and how I'm going to get there, and then after that, sometimes it's solo, sometimes with a friend or 2 friends, sometimes small group, sometimes a larger group. Those are the ones that you've got to be up at a certain time and go certain places. I like the other because if you want to spend more time somewhere, or you hear of something else,
stay.
You
stay and keep going.
You don't like it, you can leave. I like sporadic more. I think one of the first trips I took was, I'm a healing touch practitioner, and went over to Nepal a year after the earthquake. And that was that's when everything started. Is just like, even my kids, they said, we've never seen you so happy. You know, doing what you love and then discovering this new place and these new people. But that one, even there, you kind of moved around from the city to the country to the mountains and different places.
And how long did you spend in Nepal?
I think it was 3 weeks.
3
weeks.
Did you hike Everest?
I didn't. I've done Kilimanjaro.
Oh, nice!
I've
Me too.
Right.
Nice.
It's awesome.
Congrats. When did you do that?
That was I would say 8. No, more than that. 11 years ago? 11, 12 years ago? Yeah.
Very nice. Impressive. How much did you train?
Oh gosh, that one I had actually injured my knee, and one of it was a group from TAPS, which is a group that was for military loss. People who've lost someone in the military. So they climb every year with a group. And a friend of mine asked if I wanted to go, and I'd injured my knee. So I had a hard time. I was still in therapy, and I said, of course I'll do it. What the heck?
Should be fine.
I'm dragging my leg
be there.
around, but I'm sure I'll do it. And the man that was leading the trip had said, a lot of times the altitude is what matters. You could not be training. Some of these people are running and lifting weights and doing all these things, but they're at low altitude. You're at high altitude. You hike normally. You may be the one that makes
that's a really good point, and I'm very thankful that that's true, because I underprepared physically. I didn't train that much, but it was exactly that. It was the altitude that impacted people to the extent they were impacted. That was the thing that was the hardest. But wow, that's really a feat that so how many countries have you been to?
You're going to ask that. I am at 69. And I'm kind of counting Turkey. I've never been to Turkey, but this year I've flown through Turkey 4 times. I know the airport now like the back of my hand. The first 3 times were absolutely horrible. The 4th time it's like,
I got this.
I know where to go.
Hey, 4th time's a charm, like they say.
I think it was. I think it was. So I'm excited because in November, I'm supposed to go for 2 weeks on a tour. And actually get out of the airport.
Nice.
So excited.
So it wasn't just to see the airport?
No. And then December, a friend of mine and I are going to South America. And kind of spending a month there
Wow.
and just going from place to place. We've got some Airbnbs.
Mm-hmm.
One of them is with a tour group, part of it,
Okay.
and the others with just us.
Okay.
So,
Well, I'm super jealous. I have to say, take me with you.
oh,
No, but not everything. Amsterdam is great, and as you said, it's a great place to be in general. So I'm happy here. But I really do envy your travel life, because I feel the same in my prior travels. I think it's the type of thing that makes you feel the most alive. In my opinion, I think to be out there in the world with people who are different from you, experiencing different, kind of helping gain a certain perspective on your own life.
I think it's changed my life a lot.
Yeah.
Every time I walk out of the door and put my suitcase in the car, I come back changed.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
How many times you've been, or
Yeah,
where
it
you've
doesn't
been.
matter where you've been or anything else. Something happens. You meet somebody, or you see something, or you finally put things together. But
Yeah.
I'd say it's created an open heart and an open mind, and I wouldn't change that for anything.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what do you feel like it's changed, but kind of answered it a little bit, open heart and open mind. But what do you think creates the open heart and open mind? What a part of the experience does that?
Understanding people, like actually going, you hear things. You hear about a country or about a people or something, and then you go there, and it's like, this is not, this is so different. To hear their stories,
Yeah.
or to hear their history, their side of history.
Yeah.
And it's a fascinating.
It's not what you read on the news.
No.
Not really, right? Especially because the
yeah.
news is disproportionately negative, and I think real life is probably the inverse of that, in my
Yes.
opinion. But, and to that point of talking to people and understanding their world and getting into somebody else's life, I'm going to jump around a little bit between the topics here, but I'm really curious. Tell me about Moldova. In Russia's war in Ukraine.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of politics around it, a lot of propaganda around it, but how was it to be in Moldova? And I also understand that you worked with refugees there, I believe.
Yes. Yes.
So tell me about that experience in Moldova recently, here during this time.
It was. I wanted to go to a place that could help refugees in some way, and I looked at Moldova. It's the smallest country in Europe. It's the poorest country in Europe, yet they were taking on per capita, I believe, more refugees than any other country. And they said, this is our family, this is our neighbor, and we know we could also be next. And
Absolutely.
so as poor as they are and as hard as they struggle, they still opened up for them.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot. I worked a lot with the refugees there, and then also the ones from that were taken during Siberia, when the Soviets came and they would ship people to Siberia, and some of the survivors of that.
Okay.
And that's.
So what kind of work were you doing with them? What kind of interactions?
There was one place. It's the Center for Trauma and Torture, which sounds awful, but that's where people come from.
It is
from
awful.
all over. It is awful, and they help people as much as they can. There is what I did some healing touch with some of the people that would come in and work with the therapists there.
Okay.
Also, some of the kids, we'd go on like a weekend or a couple days away and just kind of be with the kids, so the people in the office could work with the mothers and give them a break. And then that's where they have a book that was the from the people around Chisinau, where I was, that went to Siberia and translated that. It's in Russian and Romanian. So I translated that with another lady into English, so that hopefully they can promote that book. And you hope something like that never happens again, but it as one lady that she was taken when she was 4 months old, and she says it is. In Ukraine, it is happening again. And,
with the kind of forced re-education of people, kind of forced renationalization of Ukrainians becoming Russian or otherwise. But wow. And so 3 months in Chisinau, which I think is the capital, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then so the last month and a half, I was able to do. They had like a children's camp for the kids most of the summer.
Yeah.
But the last month, I was able to do healing touch with the refugees and some of the kids.
Okay.
And it kind of started out. I had it on my resume, and I was trying to say this might help. This might really be something good for them. And And it wasn't till later on, one of the ladies in the office says, well, show me what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And she did a session. It's similar to Reiki, and it's just relaxing and just kind of puts you in another space.
Okay.
And I believe I started at like from the first 2 days from 10 to 3. And after that, it was 9 o'clock to sometimes 7.
Oh, so they were like,
They were just lining.
let's do more of this.
Yeah, and they
Okay.
just, it helped them get in a better place.
okay.
So
Oh, you have to
that
tell
was
me more
wonderful.
about Healing Touch. I'm not familiar with it.
It's similar to Reiki. It was a 2-year program.
And what is Reiki?
Reiki is energy work.
Okay. Okay.
So that it just helps. I worked a lot with the veterans with PTSD, and then in the safe house there in Durango, just kind of helps put their trauma in a different place, and sometimes actually eventually helps them sleep if they continue it.
Wow. Okay.
yeah.
There's a real impact.
It does.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
does. And
yeah.
sometimes one of the ladies, she left. She was in one of the hardest hit areas of Ukraine, and I didn't know what they were saying a lot of times because I don't speak. Most of them speak Russian, and I didn't have the translator with me. And she had done a session, and she sat up and just had tears in her eyes, and she gave me a hug and laughed. And it wasn't until she came into the other organization I was working at a couple days later, and someone says, well, how do you know each other? And she started crying, and she just started telling the story, and I had no idea what she's saying. And the lady said, do you know what she
you
just
helped?
told us? And I said, no. And she said, when she left, she thought there was never going to be any hope, and there was nothing good left in the world. And she said when in the middle of her session, she saw herself as a child, and she felt happiness for the first time since she left Ukraine. And she says, I know we'll be okay.
Aww. That's beautiful. Oh, that's incredible. I think
things
amazing.
like that, that's what kept coming up with people, and just to be able to show them that love.
Yeah, yeah.
You're important, and for 1 hour, you're just
Here's
you're
a safe
taking care-
space,
yeah, you're
can
safe.
reconnect.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
So I love doing that.
Yeah. Holy cow.
Yeah.
I mean, that's admirable, inspirational, amazing, difficult, and furthermore on the kind of immigrant topic a little bit, right? As I read in your reflections around the world regarding Moldova, I also have a personal strong feeling about the topic of immigration, right? It's viewed with tons of negativity, right? But immigrants fuel many Western societies, right?
And they have for many years. People have been moving around.
Absolutely, and they're never going to stop moving. And there's no, we are all the same, right?
Yes.
We're all fundamentally the same. We have the same, fundamental needs and everything. And you hear it, but it's really true. Immigrants are the backbones of various societies, right? And they buy a lot of new goods too, right? They buy a washing machine. They buy a lawnmower. They populate the economies of our. But people are also different, right? And I think, unfortunately, many people use fear tactics to scare us away. But actually, they're some of the most
incredible people. And they just want to be safe. They're the ones that left Ukraine. It's not a matter of when they can go back; it's if.
Yeah.
Do they start looking now to where do we go that we can stay?
Yeah.
Or there's so many questions.
I have a fortunate life, right? I'm grateful. I live in a nice place. I have good people around me, and I go through minor challenges and hiccups in my life, like reading the mail in another language, or the street names here, or how do you call flour when you're making a cake in the grocery store to know what to buy? I mean, these are trivial problems, right? And other types of cultural barriers that I come across in living in another culture. I can only imagine what it's like having all of that in a forced way against your will, right?
They have the clothes on their back. And
That's it.
And they can't control anything. There's nothing they can control.
Yeah.
And it's all over the world. I mean, when you look around, there's so much happening everywhere in the world, and people, whether it's political or religious. There's so many people trying to find peace.
Yeah, just safety. They just
Yes,
want to live.
they just want to
They
be
just
safe.
want to. They just want to be safe and
Yeah.
exist, right?
Yeah.
Just like the rest of us.
Yeah.
So that's a topic that I also want to shed a little bit of light on, right? From my experience being a, cultural transplant, as I called it in another culture, but to people, kind of demystifying this kind of space a little bit. I think there's a lot of work to be done there, especially based on a lot of the noise you hear in America, I think.
Yep.
And I think the war in Ukraine, Russia's war in Ukraine, is an American problem. I think it isn't, it's not on our shores, but
It's the world.
it's the world's problem.
Yeah.
I think it's an example whether or not the globe is okay with just invasions. Are we okay with that?
Girls, she was a translator, and
Yeah.
I'm amazed. Some of the girls are young people from 13 to 17, and they're from Moldova, so they know Romanian, and then they're fluent in Russian and English, and so they would translate all the time. And one of the girls was from Germany, so she knew even more languages.
Yeah.
And she said a friend of hers had gotten a text that said that Ukraine had been invaded. And she goes, it just didn't sound real.
Yeah.
And she said, I went downstairs, and my parents were sitting at the kitchen table, and they were both crying. And they said, did you hear what happened? And they said, do you understand what's happening? Do you understand how close this is and what this could mean?
To the German.
Yes.
Right.
As to all of Europe, because it's one step closer. It's sometimes there's, as you've probably seen, some of the countries are turning to a more pro-Russian regime, politics instead of the pro-West. So it's
the
it's coming
authoritarian
around
pole
yes.
versus the democratic pole.
And so
Absolutely.
it's kind of like almost like tightening a noose around Ukraine and saying, I don't think people understand what's at risk.
No, I think it's a real fight for whether or not people want to govern themselves and be free, or do we want kings?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Unless they're just figureheads.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
I know.
Then we have King's Day here. It's just, that's fine. But
there were people in Moldova that were hardline, more pro-Russian, that would even say there is no war there. We've been to Ukraine and there is no war there. This is just all fabricated.
Yeah.
Even though they have the refugees there, they've
There's
been
an
part of them
explanation
have
for
been hit, and it's
Yeah.
Yes,
The power of propaganda is
it's amazing.
Immense.
You come back to the U.S. and you try to tell people that, and it's
if you're in the Fox News bubble,
then there's no
getting through.
Yeah.
Right? Because as much as I think that maybe somebody is being deceived, they think I'm being deceived.
Right.
So,
and I had people say even that are in that bubble when I came back and would tell them something, and their comment was like, "Boy, you got a lot of BS over there, didn't you?"
Look what the world has done.
Yes.
The entire world has brainwashed
you're like,
you.
I've seen this, I've this, and they're just like, I mean, I've talked. This might be a really touchy subject, and especially now, but I've talked to people who have had escaped Palestine, or their families had escaped Palestine. People don't probably understand the history of what happened years ago when the Israelis came in and just massacred people. Massacred people. And you hear those stories from firsthand, or this is what we have to do when we go into Gaza. This is how they humiliate, especially the women and things like that. And people say that's just BS. Someone's lying to you, and it's there's bad things everywhere, and I know that. I know every side has some bad, but we are all humans. I think sometimes we try to treat others, like you're saying, immigrants, and all sometimes as subhuman. And they're not.
Absolutely,
they're not.
And they're some of the most human. Everybody's human, but they're not asking for a lot. They're humble, keep their head down, work, kind of just get through. But they're vilified as, famously we've heard as rapists and criminals, and they're not sending your best.
And they're not.
It's just a bunch of baloney.
And I think I want to say in almost every country I've been in. I haven't heard it here, but I haven't talked to a lot of people. But someone will come up and ask, like, where are you guys from, or where are you from? And then just think for a minute and say, we all want peace. You know that, don't you? All of us just want to live in peace and be happy.
You're thinking that should be your response to where you...
No, that's what people have come up to either to me or to other people
knowing
in the
that
group
you're
and
from
saying,
the U.S.
Yes.
Okay.
We were in the stands a few months before Moldova, it was a month before Moldova.
That's like Kyrgyzstan,
Uzbekistan,
not like the stands.
Yes,
No,
yeah,
for those who don't know, not the bleachers. Yeah, okay.
And I think it was Kazakhstan. It was the last one there, and the man came up to us, and obviously a Muslim, and he asked where we were from, and then he just thinks a minute. He put his arm around one of the guys there, and he's just like, he goes, we all want peace. We all want to live in harmony together. Do you guys, basically, do you believe that? And
almost as if you're the representative, like, please go back and tell your people.
Yes.
Oh, that's heartbreaking.
It is, and pretty much everybody. Well, actually, I did hear this because our cab driver from the airport, he got to talking about different things, and he said the people just want to live, to love, and to be happy and be safe. And he said, and it's all the politicians on top that just create havoc and cause misery for everybody. And I think that's all over the world.
It is. It's the hunger of power and greed, and it's nothing more complex than that. I don't think it's not a...
No, average person doesn't want that. People in all these countries being bombed, they don't want that. They're not.
Yeah, absolutely. And people of a country, people are not their government.
Right.
I think is an important distinction, right? Because there's a lot of times that the line between the people and the government can be blurred a little bit, and those are not...
I've heard that. Well, all people from there are bad, or all people, why are you going to that country? There are enemies.
All Chinese are bad.
Yeah, these are enemies. And
China's our opponent. I mean, are you kidding me?
People everywhere.
We need them. And they need us.
Yeah.
And we love to buy their stuff.
I know.
Oh boy. Yeah.
Well, that's why I used to bring back things for the kids all the time, and then I noticed the things I was bringing back, I bought them there, and they looked like they were from there. But you'd go to give it to them, and they were all made in China. So when I went to China, I got the kids like, okay, this is cool. They're finally getting something. So I forgot what it was I bought them, and I went to get it, and it was made in Taiwan. And that's when I said, I'm through.
Oh, that's
no more
funny.
stuff. They got coffee, chocolate, whatever the food or whatever the flavor of that country was. I'd bring that back, but no things.
I mean, everything is made in China, right? It's like a phrase of our life, right? And Apple iPhones, even though they say designed in California, because they're designed in California, but they're made in China. Now crazy. India as well, but in several other places, the whole supply chain. But
and you go through your home, and it's like throughout everything,
looking underneath everything,
absolutely everything, your couch, anything that has that tag on it.
And also, if you say I'm only going to buy American made, that might be the thing on the outside that you're buying, but a car, for example, is going to have a sub-assembly that was made in this country, that has a component that was made in that country, that uses a raw material that was from that country. The supply chain is like interwoven together. So.
And they don't get paid anything,
No.
But that's just. That's what I think when I was in Nepal, and when somebody in the United States or another country says, I'm going to Saudi Arabia to work for a year, they're making big bucks. They're going there and they're making enough to live for a couple of years or something. Yeah. In Nepal, they would go to Saudi Arabia and they would make barely a little bit more than they were making if they were slave labor. Barely more than they were making, but they could bring it home.
Unbelievable
and I thought,
difference,
yes,
right?
And it's like,
right?
What? They're going to do the same. They're paid so much less.
Yeah.
And that there a lot of things have opened my eyes over the years to the way the world works.
The world really is.
Yeah.
Well, the best way to really know is to get out there, to see and to speak to people, and to also pair that with some history, right? I think, because it helps provide some context. But
it's the rest of the story or the other side of the story.
Yeah.
There's always two sides.
Yeah, at least.
Yeah. Sometimes I did a Panama Canal cruise, and I always thought it was just such this nice merger, and everybody was happy, and what a wonderful thing. And there was a talk on the ship or something. They said, I bet this is what everybody thought. And it's like, yeah. And they're like, no. Panama said, absolutely not. We don't want you here. We don't want anything to do with this. So the U.S.
Panama
said,
did not want the canal.
no. And so the U.S. said, then we're sending our warships, and they're going to be heading your way. Because we had no way to defend ourselves against that. So it's uncle.
Yeah.
So it's like, I didn't learn that.
We won't make you, but we're not going to ask.
I didn't learn that. I didn't learn that in history. So
so. That's a real life example.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited to keep watching where you go, and then myself achieve retirement the soonest. Like next week, but. No, it's really cool. You have to keep telling me when you come back here to Amsterdam, and we'll check in. We'll see if you made it to Turkey outside of the airport.